Thank you. Mm. I've heard a lot of interesting things that really touch me in some of my experiences, but in a slightly different way. Uh, I live in a monastery, but I want to say that just someone like me being a Buddhist nun is itself an act of activism. And so all types of activism are important. Some of us can be right there on the front line. Some of us, the front line actually sort of comes to us just because of who we are and where we are. And I invite everyone to be wherever you are, in that space, in that place, and participate in acts of activism. Someone said something earlier about forgiveness, and I wanted to link that to our ancestors. Because none of us would be here or having this conversation if we didn't have not only our individual ancestry, but our collective one. And I just want to tell you a short story because the forgiveness comes in. It really wasn't until I became a nun that I had the time and space to look deeply and to get connected to my own quote unquote roots or ancestry. And for obvious reasons, I was more focused on the African American experience, which is true and real. But when I was in South Africa, in Botswana, and I got off the plane, and I saw all these beautiful black people in positions of leadership. You know, everyone in a position of authority or power was black. And this was a wonderful thing. And then I got to meet someone who was a human rights attorney. But she touched something in me because she looked like anyone might have looked like. But what came up for me was the stereotype, what I saw time and time again, perhaps in the news, a large black woman with beautiful dreads, articulate, but somehow it was incongruent. The matron of the hospital was, a black nurse. The guy head of the pediatrics AIDS hospital was black. But what came to me, what I realized I was having difficulty grappling with was what my ancestors believed and taught us. Well, yeah, they're black, but are they good? They're not white. And, sometimes the Jewish one is sometimes, that's who we go to. And I don't say that to offend anyone, but that's the messages that we got. But I saw that. And I was grateful to have had the opportunity to see it so I could drop it. And then I had to forgive myself. And then I moved on, and I had the chance to go in Europe to the UK. And when I was in that land, suddenly, my feet touched the ground, and suddenly something said, this is the land of your ancestors too. I went, oh, right. And then I had the chance to visit a Tudor castle. It was wonderfully restored for educational purposes. And at this castle, you could see the opulence where the nobility lived, the tapestry, the warm clothes, the big, beautiful beds, and the food. And then right outside the moat, there were the serfs. And how did they live? They lived in straw bedding full of bed bugs. Even though they made the candles, they couldn't afford them, so they had little nubs. They worked tirelessly, endlessly. And these I thought were their folk, and they treated them like that? But something really struck me because I said, whoa, these are my ancestors. And the serfs lived like the slaves down in Richmond in Winchester, Virginia, at the plantation where my grandma used to work. And it just all came together for me, and I thought, my God, I have got to reconcile in me the blood in my veins is both the slaves and the slave owners. And that's a war, a violent war that requires a lot of love, a lot of breathing, walking, listening, but ultimately forgiveness. And so when we forgive, when I forgive, I realize that I'm walking this path of nonviolence to forgive and love not only myself, but my ancestors. And what a great legacy. We've all been gifted with the great leaders in the world. We've been passed a beautiful torch. So the question that comes up for me, what are we going to do with that legacy? What is our past going to look like? What are we going to do in the present to make that future a better one?